So Sadiq Khan recently made a statement about the rising crime that is happening in London, and this is his assessment of it. But this piece came out from The Guardian today. Middle class cocaine use fuels London's rising violence. So, obviously, right? It's not Muslims. It's not all these migrants that you're bringing in. It's not, all these asylum seekers or anything like that. It's white people, right? It's middle class white people's fault, right? He's not going to say poor white people because that is probably, a voter base for him, because they want welfare and things too. They want things from the government. But, it's funny how he attacks middle class people. We all know what he's talking about. He's talking about white people. He's not going to come out and say it, but he's like, oh, you people going to your parties and buying cocaine, you don't realize that you're actually fueling this crime and you should feel, some responsibility. But the piece goes on. It's like cocaine use at middle class parties is helping fuel drug-related gang violence on the streets of London, Sadiq Khan has warned. So that is just bullshit, right? Okay, first of all, if you want to reduce crime involving drugs, what you do is you legalize it. We know this already. We have tons and tons of evidence showing that making things illegal just helps drug cartels, criminals make a lot of money. So it's not the middle class people doing coke at their parties and stuff who are creating the crime. And second of all, you can sell drugs and not hurt anybody. I've known plenty of people who have done it. You don't have to be as violent as the people are being. And a lot of the crime that is increased in London is not just specifically related to drugs. So it's a lot of bullshit. It's smoke and mirrors, but he's going to do everything he can not to point the finger to the real fucking problem, to, the migrants in London, the massive demographic shift that has happened over time. It's not middle class white people. It's not their fault. Okay. They're just trying to make a living, get by through life, and they buy a bit of drugs here and there, right? And now you're gonna blame them. It's bullshit. And yeah, I expect this from Sadiq Khan. But London's mayor said recreational drug use was not a victimless crime, and he had seen evidence from authorities of a clear link between cocaine consumption and rising violence in the capital. So what evidence? You're just going to say you've seen evidence. You're not going to cite anything. Oh, I've seen evidence that, yes, we understand that increase in drug-related offenses or drug activity is probably going to increase crime. But, this wasn't an issue 10 years ago. And, are they doing more coke than they did before or less? Are they doing, because if they were still doing about the same amount of coke 10 years ago than they are doing today, then that would imply that it has nothing to do with these middle class people doing cocaine. It's the people that are in here. There's these people going around London throwing acid at people's face to steal their mopeds, to steal cars, steal this shit. And you're going to blame it all on drugs? No, these people, they wanted the moped. They wanted this other shit, right? And they resorted to throwing acid on people's faces, right? There are criminals in Canada and America that don't do this. I know tons of people who do coke. I know tons of people who do all these types of drugs. And there isn't the same level of crime or, stabbings that are going on. So clearly it has nothing to do with them, but he's just going to find any excuse to brush the burden or all the fault over to middle class white people. And we all know that's what he means. But Khan called for action to be taken against people who buy the drug at middle class parties alongside a crackdown on gang members. So, I guess he wants police to start going into houses and rummaging through their places to search for cocaine. Like these are the real culprits. If you middle class people stop doing cocaine, all this violence will stop, right? which is not true. We know the real problem. It's not cocaine. It's not cocaine use. The mayor answering questions on his LBC radio phone in show said, there is definitely a link, which has been shown to me by police, the drugs and criminal gangs and knife crime going up. Okay, correlation does not equal causation, first of all. He continued, we have got to make sure we take action among those young people who are involved in criminal gangs as well as those who are buying them at middle class parties. So take action how? It's going to be the same liberal bullshit that all these other liberals do when they take action against people in the community doing crime. Because most of these people are going to be Muslims, it's going to be like outreach programs. It's going to be like, oh, well, you attack this person, well, we'll give you a slap on the wrist, and, we'll tell you that you're doing this because of the racist society that you're living in, and, the fact that your country is shit is because of these people. It's not going to do anything, okay? Legalizing cocaine, legalizing drugs would probably have some effect on the crime, but also not bringing in a bunch of people that are, that do not like your culture, that are adamantly against you into your country is also not a very good idea. And you're going to get results like this, okay? This doesn't really speak too much. This doesn't say too much good things about multiculturalism either, considering the most multicultural city on the planet, I think, is like London. So if it's having these massive issues, then it's not really speaking too highly of it. And if anything, it's giving it a worse name, right? Because a lot of these people were multicultural and shit like that, and we're doing okay until you started bringing a bunch of Muslims in there. And Muslims specifically, other cultures can assimilate. It takes longer for some than others, but Muslims specifically, I'm not saying all Muslims, there's good Muslim people out there, don't jump down my throat or whatever, but generally these people do not assimilate. They're going to wait, bide their times until they can get enough numbers to impose their Sharia law, Islam on you and your society. Like, this is what they have done throughout history, and this is what they're going to continue to do. Okay, so the coke users and shit is not the issue. He continued, we have got to make sure we take action among these blah blah blah. There are some Londoners who think it's a victimless crime taking cocaine at middle class parties. We need to make sure these Londoners realize there is no such thing as a victimless crime. Yes, there is. There is such a thing as a victimless crime. Me buying coke or weed and smoking some weed is a victimless crime. Okay, nobody got hurt. It was a voluntary interaction between me and this guy, okay? So whatever this guy did beforehand to get that weed has nothing to do with our interaction to begin with. And most people that I know who have sold drugs and do drugs do not act like this, do not do all this shit to get their drugs. They know somebody who grows a bunch of shit, they buy it from them, and then they sell it, right? The only time people get fucked and hurt is when they screw over other people, is when they steal, when they sell some bunk shit to somebody for hundreds or thousands of dollars, right? This is when shit goes down, right? And the funny thing is, the only reason the American economy and a lot of these companies during the recession did okay and made through it was because of the illegal drug trade going on. Because the thing about illegal drugs and, stuff that is not taxed by the government, that is not regulated to shit, this is why I'm for decriminalization, not legalization. But all that money helped keep the economy going. You can look this up and it's because, you're able to make these trades. It's all in cash. There's no debt really involved. People are not buying things. They're not buying drugs with credit cards. It's all with cash. Okay. And like, in the free market, or like when I go to a store, right, I can't be like, hey, can I spot a couple 2 liters of Pepsi and some whatever, and I'll pay you back next week. But with weed dealers or dealers, you can do this. So this was actually very good for the economy. So for people to be attacking drugs, the drug trade all the time, it really baffles me. And it's like, it's obviously he is just using this as an excuse, but there are a lot of people who have a very irrational view of it. And maybe they just say we need to ban all drugs. I see a lot of this coming from conservatives too, and it's like I don't think they understand the complete ramifications of making things illegal, and the benefits of making things legal, or at the or decriminalized. Because making things legal and then functioning through the government and having them regulate it really just fucks everything up to begin with, and we're going to lose a lot of the profits that we would normally have. A lot of the money that is going to go between people that would actually help the economy is now just going to be going to the government, because they're going to highly tax it and they're going to go waste it on something that we don't need. Or they're going to be like, okay, we're going to have all this extra revenue in the next 10 years, and then they miscalculate, they overspend, and now we're even more debt. Because they're like, oh, they counted on all the money that they're going to get from weed to pay for all these things. But then maybe they don't get enough of it, because there's still going to be an underground market, especially if they overprice the marijuana, the coke, or whatever. In my opinion, you should legalize all drugs, all of them. I don't give a fuck, okay? You can piddle paddle and I don't know. It's, in my opinion, that would be the best option for everybody. Make it legal, decriminalize it, and teach your kids not to do drugs. Be better parents. If you want people to stop getting all fucked, doing heroin, all this shit, you got to be involved in your kid's life. You got to be in there all the time. You got to really care about your children. And obviously the doctors and all this stuff had a huge impact on the drug problem that's going on right now pretty much all over the world, because they were just people, they believe doctors when they say you need this to make you better. They're going to believe them, and I don't blame them for that, because I would believe, or take somebody seriously too if they went to school for 7 or 8 years to learn about something. But a lot of these guys were paid off by pharmaceutical companies to just give people drugs, and then now we have this massive fucking issue. But yeah, I'm on a different tangent now, and I'll try to keep going with this story here. But he continued, we have to make sure to take action amongst young people, blah, blah, blah. He added, some of the young people being knifed on our streets in London, some of the young people losing their lives is because they are involved in criminal gangs who are lower down the food chain in relation to drugs. So everything tied to the middle class. The mayor comments came after the Justice Secretary David Gauck said in May that middle class people who take cocaine should feel a degree of guilt and responsibility when they see stories of teenagers being murdered in Hackney, East London. Khan, who campaigned for Remain vote in the EU referendum, said Brexit could make tackling the illegal drug trade more difficult. What? Closing your borders and not letting everybody through is going to make it more difficult? Like, what? How do people read this and agree with it? How stupid are people? And the funny thing is, a lot of people do agree with it. They read it and they're like, oh, it makes sense. It's the same thing in Canada. The conservatives are like, why can't you apply the Safe Third Country Act agreement to the entire border? They're like, well, that'd be too complex. We would have to put border agents on every mile of the border. It's not efficient. We have to leave some loopholes open because this is better. And it's like, what? No, it isn't. Just apply the fucking border standards to the entire border, you fucking idiots. But there's enough stupid Canadians in Canada. They go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. that makes a lot of sense. They're retards. They're fucking idiots. And this is what government schools does to you, right? It makes you into a little drone. You cannot think critically. They taught me nothing about thinking critically in school. I had to learn about all these things myself, my own research. I've learned way more. When I finished school at 18, I learned way more about life, way more about just economics, just basic shit, doing my own research than I did in the government schools, because they don't want you to be thinkers. They want you to be drones. They want you to work. They want you to shut the fuck up and do what the fuck they tell you to do. And the drugs come from overseas. And the idea that we'll be more effective at fighting crime by leaving the EU, by not having security arrangements within the EU, is ridiculous. So apparently they're more safe within the EU and all their security agreements or whatever. But that's not true. Like, it's getting in there. The drugs are getting in there. And I don't even really have an issue with the drugs getting in there, right? Like, it is true. People, if they want the drugs, they're going to get them. And you can make it illegal. That's not going to change anything. They're still going to get them. But, making it illegal, you're just going to increase the amount of crime, right? Adding in a bunch of migrants that come from countries where, they'll stab you for any fucking little reason, and you mix that in with making things illegal, then yeah, you're going to get a lot of fucking crime, a lot of nasty fucking crime. So, all you need to do is legalize this shit. Stop blaming middle-class white people for this shit, right? That's bullshit. It's more, this guy, I can't believe he keeps getting reelected. It's obviously has to do with the demographics of London, considering white people are now minority there. But soon there's going to be no white people left in London, this iconic city that they built. It's going to be all fucking Muslims. It's going to be all them, and there's going to be hijabs everywhere. It's insane what is happening to that place. And Europeans and Canada isn't much better. They're just full of fucking cucks who just sit back, don't say anything, are too afraid to be called racist, right? Who gives a fuck about being called racist? You will always be called racist. Always. It doesn't matter what you do, how much you concede, what you say. It doesn't matter. You could be married to a black woman, have black kids, save a bunch of black people or Muslims from a burning building. It doesn't matter. You will still be called racist. It doesn't matter. It will always be there. So don't worry about it. Stop trying to, keep quiet so that people don't attack you, because they will attack you sooner or later. It's just a matter of time, because once these evil racists are out of the way, they're going to go for the person who's next in line, and then next in line, next in line, next in line. The left will eat itself eventually. It will happen. And it's just a matter of time. But you don't want to be around when they get to that point, when they start eating all these other people who are really just, saying their regular opinions. But nowadays, everything is a microaggression. There's not enough real racism to go around. They have to show you videos every day of some white guy yelling at a black person, or, look at this racism, look at this. Like the other day in Canada here, they were showing this white guy go up to a Muslim family, and he's like, this is my province, this is mine. And, they're arguing back and forth. And I don't condone what that white guy did. He was clearly drunk and shit. But now these stories are coming out all the time to be, hey, white people, you're racist and you got to stop this racism. But whenever something bad that they do happens, it's like nothing. You don't hear about it. Like, there's this thing in the States right now, everybody's like, oh, the white supremacy, there's this white guy who killed this black girl, which is horrible. Like, this guy, crazy, motherfucker, evil, needs to die. But we hear about that for weeks and weeks. We still hear about Trayvon Martin. And the guy was Hispanic who fucking killed him. But, he's white enough that they can use it. But the other day, there was this black woman who stole this woman's white baby and set him on fire and killed the baby on the train tracks, right? No word of this. Nobody hears about this. Imagine if the roles were reversed. It would be completely different. And the Toronto shooting here, like the guy, he avoided the Sikh guy. He said, oh, don't worry, I'm not going to shoot you. And then he went and killed fucking white girls and shit. So, if that was anybody else, any other race that did that, if that was a white person who looked at another white person and was like, oh, don't worry, I'm not going to shoot you, goes, kills a couple Muslim, that would be hate crime, hate all over the place. It'd be we got to look into motives of a possible hate crime. But whenever white people get killed like in these fashions, it's never even a question. It's just like, oh, well, whatever. But Khan, who campaigned for Remain to vote in the EU referendum, blah, blah, blah. The drugs come from overseas. In May, Simon Kempton, who leads on drug policy for Police Federation, also said middle-class drug users were to blame for the drug trade and related violence. Like, what? Oh, my God. Like, you guys, this is what I'm telling you. You cannot appease these people. It will never be enough. And speaking at the Federation conference in Birmingham, he said the only reason gangs are into drugs is because people want to buy them. No shit, you fucking idiot. Part of that is not street-level users. Street-level users are a problem because they steal to fund their habit. But on their own, they will not support an organized crime group. So, yeah, right. It's not the street users' fault. It's none of them. It's really the middle-class people who are having their parties and are doing the drugs inside. The big market is people with money to spend. They are often oblivious to the misery they cause because it's not on their doorstep. Middle-class drug users do not come across the radar police because they are consuming it behind closed doors. But this also doesn't surprise me. He is a Muslim, so he's going to attack drugs. He's going to try to ban drugs eventually. He's probably going to start to attack alcohol eventually if he's able to increase the restrictions on this. It's just like that bus a couple years ago that had pictures of scantily clad women. He's like, oh, well, we got to remove this because it's objectifying women. You don't give a shit. You just didn't like them because they weren't wearing hijabs. But, London is going to shit. And if you guys elect this guy again, you can just write London off completely if it's not already written off already. But that's all I pretty much had to say. If you like my content, subscribe and have a good day. See ya.